The colony rested on the edge of a vast, untouched wilderness, where humanity had begun to etch its presence into the stars. It wasn't a sprawling metropolis, but a modest settlement, home to families seeking new beginnings. Here, beneath twin suns, laughter rang through the air as children played in the open fields, their voices a testament to humanity's optimism. Among them was Liam Kane, an 8-year-old boy with tousled brown hair and wide, curious eyes. He carried with him the boundless energy of youth and the innate kindness that drew others to him. He loved exploring the rocky outcrops near the settlement's perimeter, often bringing back small treasures, an oddly shaped stone, a shimmering piece of alien mineral. To his parents, he was a beacon of joy. His mother often joked he had inherited his father's stubbornness and his own boundless curiosity. His father, General Marcus Kane, was rarely home, duty keeping him on the front lines of humanity's expansion. Despite this, Liam idolized him. He kept a small hollow picture of his father in his room, often showing it to his friends, proud of the man who was a legend to some but simply Dad to him. Tensions between the settlers and the native Ralzek species had been simmering for months. The Ralzek were an advanced race with a strict hierarchical society. Communication was limited, hampered by a lack of understanding and mutual mistrust. Most humans avoided venturing too far into Ralzek territory, and the aliens largely kept to themselves, watching silently from a distance. One fateful day, the balance tipped. It started with a misunderstanding. A group of settlers unknowingly crossed into sacred Ralzek grounds. What followed was a brief, tense standoff that ended with the settlers retreating, but not before tempers flared and the seeds of retaliation were sown. The Ralzek viewed the intrusion as a provocation, an act of defiance that demanded a response. The attack came without warning. Ships descended from the sky, their sleek forms casting ominous shadows over the settlement. Panic spread like wildfire as settlers scrambled for cover, mothers clutching their children, fathers grabbing whatever tools or weapons they could find. The air was filled with the hum of alien technology, the crackle of energy weapons discharging indiscriminately. Liam was outside when it began, playing near the outskirts. At first, he didn't understand the danger, his young mind struggling to process the chaos around him. He saw a woman stumble, her arms scorched by a blast, and instinctively ran to help her. Even as others screamed for him to run, he stayed, tugging at her arm to pull her to safety. It was a moment of bravery, a reflection of his father's spirit, though he didn't know it. The Ralzek soldier that struck him didn't see a boy. To them, he was just another human, part of the encroaching force threatening their existence. A single, coldly calculated shot ended his life. Liam fell to the ground, his small body still, his wide eyes now empty. The aftermath was eerily silent. The Ralzek retreated as quickly as they had arrived, leaving destruction and despair in their wake. The settlers mourned their losses, their community forever scarred. Among the dead was Liam Kane, his body cradled by a grieving woman who whispered apologies through her tears. The boy who had once been the heart of the colony was gone. Word traveled quickly, carried across secure channels to distant outposts and command centers. When the message reached General Marcus Kane, it came in the form of a curt report, civilian casualties confirmed. One identified as Liam Kane, son of General Marcus Kane. For a man known for his unshakable composure, the news was a hammer blow. He read the words once, twice, unable to process them. His hand trembled as he replayed the transmission, each word a dagger to his heart. In his private quarters, away from the eyes of his soldiers, Marcus allowed himself to grieve. The weight of his loss pressed down on him, threatening to crush him entirely. Memories of Liam flooded his mind, his laughter, his boundless energy, the way he would cling to him during his rare visits home. He clenched his fists, his knuckles white, as the pain turned to something sharper, something more dangerous. It was not just grief that consumed Marcus Kane, it was fury. Marcus Kane stared at the holographic transmission in silence. The official report had concluded, but the weight of its contents lingered like an oppressive storm. He played it again, this time focusing on every detail, the flicker of static, the detached tone of the officer delivering the news, and, most of all, the name at the center of it. Liam Kane. His son.
His boy.
He sat motionless in his dimly lit quarters, his face a mask of control that barely concealed the turmoil beneath. Memories flooded his mind. Liam's boundless curiosity, his laughter, the way his small hand had once slipped into Marcus's as they walked together. Marcus had been so proud of him, even from a distance. He had justified his absences by telling himself he was building a safer future for his son. Now that future was ashes. A knock at the door broke the stillness. It was his second-in-command, Colonel Hughes, with the same professional detachment that marked the military's response to personal tragedies. General Kane. Hughes began carefully. I wanted to extend my... Marcus raised a hand, silencing him. I don't need condolences. I need information. His voice was flat, but there was an undercurrent of restrained fury that sent a chill through Hughes. We've confirmed the attack was carried out by a Ralzek strike force, Hughes reported. They've been emboldened lately, but this seems different. It's almost as if they wanted to provoke us. Marcus leaned forward, his elbows resting on the desk, his hands clasped tightly. Do they understand what they've done? Hughes hesitated. It's unclear, sir. Ralzek cultural patterns are still largely unknown to us. They may not even. They killed a child. My child, Marcus interrupted, his voice low and cold. Whether they understand it or not is irrelevant. They'll learn. After Hughes left, Marcus turned his focus to the tactical display projected before him. He didn't see data points or strategic overlays. He saw an enemy that had dared to take everything from him. The gears in his mind began to turn, shifting from grief to strategy, from loss to vengeance. He called an emergency meeting of his senior staff, each of whom entered the war room with a mix of apprehension and resolve. The general's reputation preceded him, a man of unyielding determination, known for turning impossible odds in humanity's favor. But tonight, there was something different in his demeanor. The cold calculation they had come to expect was now fueled by something far more personal. Marcus began speaking without preamble. The Ralzek have crossed a line. This isn't about territorial disputes or political posturing anymore. This is about survival, ours, not theirs. He paced slowly, his presence commanding the room. They've mistaken our restraint for weakness. It's time to show them the cost of underestimating humanity. The staff exchanged uneasy glances. One officer, a seasoned strategist named Colonel Winters, spoke up. General, with all due respect, escalation could risk open war. The Ralzek outnumber us in this sector, and their technology doesn't win wars. Resolve does, Marcus cut in. His gaze swept across the room, daring anyone to challenge him further. We've faced superior forces before. We adapt. We endure. And when it matters most, we triumph. That's what it means to be human. Plans began to take shape, each step carefully orchestrated to maximize impact. Marcus's strategy was unorthodox, relying on guerrilla tactics, deception, and precision strikes that would cripple the Ralzek's infrastructure. He ordered the mobilization of fleets and the assembly of elite strike teams, handpicked for their ability to execute under extreme pressure. As the meeting adjourned, Marcus lingered in the war room, staring at the glowing map of the sector. His mind was a storm of thoughts, memories of Liam interwoven with calculations of destruction. He couldn't afford to falter now. Every decision he made, every order he gave, would be a step toward avenging his son. Back in his quarters, he sat in silence once more. This time, he retrieved a small hollow projector from a drawer. It activated with a soft hum, projecting an image of Liam. The boy's face was frozen in a moment of joy, his smile so bright it felt almost like a physical ache. I'll make them pay for what they've done, Marcus whispered, his voice breaking for the first time. I promise you, Liam. They'll understand the price of their actions. The promise became a mantra, fueling every decision he made in the days that followed. He worked tirelessly, driving himself and his forces to the brink as they prepared for the coming campaign. Rest was a luxury he couldn't afford, not while the Ralzek still drew breath. In the rare quiet moments, doubt threatened to creep in. Was this vengeance truly for Liam, or had it become something darker? Marcus pushed the thought aside. Justice and vengeance were two sides of the same coin, and he would see this through, no matter the cost. By the time the fleets were ready to move, there was no trace of hesitation left in Marcus Kane. His orders were clear, his strategy flawless. The Ralzek had taken his son, but they had no idea what they had unleashed in return. Marcus would make sure they learned. The first strike came under the cover of darkness, though the concept of night meant little on the Ralzek's primary outpost, where artificial light bathed the planet in perpetual twilight. Humanity's forces moved with precision, targeting key communication hubs and power stations. Explosions tore through the stillness, each one a calculated blow to the Ralzek's infrastructure. Their response was swift but scattered, unprepared for the ruthlessness of Marcus Kane's assault. From the command deck of his flagship, Marcus watched the unfolding battle with an unflinching gaze. Reports came in from his officers. Targets destroyed, minimal human casualties, alien forces in disarray. His strategy was working. The Ralzek had relied on their technological superiority for too long, assuming it would shield them from retaliation. Marcus had anticipated this arrogance, using it against them with a series of feints and ambushes that left their forces scrambling to adapt. The human fleet operated with brutal efficiency. Advanced jamming systems disrupted Ralzek communications, rendering their coordinated tactics useless. Ground teams deployed EMP charges that disabled alien weaponry, turning once dominant warriors into panicked prey. The humans were smaller in number, but their adaptability and ferocity more than compensated for the disparity. For the Ralzek, the humans' relentlessness was terrifying. Their species had always viewed war as a structured affair, governed by rules and traditions. The humans had no such restraints. They struck where it hurt most: supply lines, resource depots, and civilian centers that had once been considered untouchable. To the Ralzek, it was unthinkable. To Marcus Kane, it was necessary. The Ralzek leaders convened in desperation, their once confident demeanor now replaced by fear and confusion. They couldn't comprehend the depth of the humans' rage, the relentless drive that seemed to fuel their every action. For centuries, the Ralzek had dominated their region of space, their might unquestioned. Now, for the first time, they faced an enemy that didn't just want victory, it wanted retribution. Marcus Kane's tactics extended beyond physical warfare. Psychological operations sowed discord among the Ralzek ranks, exploiting their rigid hierarchy. False intelligence fed to captured communication channels created paranoia, leading to internal power struggles. Propaganda broadcasts, tailored specifically to the Ralzek's cultural values, painted the humans not as aggressors, but as an unstoppable force of nature, one that would annihilate anything in its path. But amidst the victories, there were moments of reflection. Marcus stood alone on the observation deck of his ship, staring out at the debris fields left in the wake of the battles. He thought of Liam, of the life that had been stolen from him. Each success brought a fleeting sense of justice, but it was always followed by a hollow ache. The boy he was fighting for would never return, no matter how many Ralzek fell. Still, Marcus pushed forward, driven by the promise he had made. The Ralzek had to understand the consequences of their actions. They had to see the strength of humanity, the unyielding resolve that defined their species. Anything less would dishonor Liam's memory. The war escalated with each passing day. The Ralzek, though battered, began to adapt, their leaders rallying their forces in a desperate bid to reclaim the upper hand. Skirmishes grew fiercer, and the cost of victory became steeper. Marcus's forces suffered losses, brave men and women who had trusted his vision, his promise of vengeance. Each death weighed on him, though he never showed it. His soldiers looked to him for strength, and he refused to let them see the cracks forming beneath his hardened exterior. In one particularly brutal engagement, a Ralzek counterattack ambushed a human supply convoy, resulting in heavy casualties. The aftermath was grim, and Marcus personally reviewed the mission logs. As he watched the footage of his soldiers' final moments, He clenched his fists so tightly that his nails drew blood. The Ralzek had managed a small victory, but it was one he would ensure they regretted. Retaliation came swiftly. Marcus ordered a targeted strike on a key Ralzek manufacturing facility, a sprawling complex that produced their most advanced weaponry. The mission was high-risk, requiring his ground teams to infiltrate heavily fortified territory. Failure was not an option. The operation was a masterclass in human ingenuity and determination. The ground teams navigated treacherous terrain, evading patrols and automated defenses with a combination of stealth and sheer grit. They planted high-yield explosives at critical points within the facility, timed to detonate in a chain reaction that would render the entire site inoperable. When the explosions came, they lit up the alien sky like a second sunrise, a fiery beacon of humanity's defiance. As the Ralzek scrambled to respond, Marcus addressed his fleet. His voice was calm but laced with the unshakable resolve that had become his hallmark. "This is what happens when you take from us," he said. "This is what happens when you think humanity will break. We don't break. We endure. And we will make you remember that for the rest of your existence." The Ralzek leadership, once proud and unyielding, now faced a sobering reality. The humans were not just a threat, they were a force that could not be stopped. They began to consider the unthinkable: surrender.